This man, Pitchford, is fighting his own war and he has no rules, no boundaries. He doesn't flinch at flash drives, assault, or game price increases. He's not loyal to fan bases or good writing or decent adaptations. He trades reputation for money. He's the CEO of Gearbox Software. Randy! We've met before.
Heyo!
Yeah, hi. So, Randy Pitchford, the co-founder and CEO of Gearbox Software, is not exactly a man of high standing in the gaming sphere. He has overseen the development of the famous Borderlands series as an executive producer. While he hasn't exactly been credited as a writer on the series since the first game, he is key in the creative direction of the series. So, a lot of this series' shortcomings, by that I mean the third game's writing and the mere existence of new tales, is mostly put onto him. I still like the third game because I think the gameplay makes up for the slightly grating humor and weak story, but, you know, I get why people are getting exhausted from this series. Now, is it exactly fair to blame Randy for this series becoming cringe? Tough call. Like I said, he hasn't been credited as a writer since the first game, but he does play a huge role in the creative aspects of the series. How big of a role? I don't know. But he greenlit the movie's existence, so that definitely guaranteed him a place in hell, if the medieval times incident hadn't already.
I love little girls, they make me feel so good.
So, in 2018, a former lawyer for Gearbox made allegations that Randy left a USB drive at a medieval times restaurant that not only contained very sensitive company information, but also would appear to be, okay, how do I say it? Cod points, cheese pizza. I'm using these terms euphemistically if you didn't catch on. You still haven't caught on? Shit. Okay, the thing that sent Jared Fogle to prison. You can Google the rest of that if you're still confused. I am not going to spell it out for you, jackasses. I'm trying to stay monetized. Sorry, that was unnecessarily rude. You guys make it worth it. You guys aren't jackasses. I love you. Where was I? Oh yeah, Randy likes kids apparently. Or not. So Randy did admit that the flash drive existed and had not safe for work material on it, but according to him at least, it was legal adult content. He's apparently a consumer of camgirl content and was studying the footage on the drive to figure out how this particular girl... Fuck, how do I say this without getting shit demonetized? I need to sign sponsorship deals, I swear. He was apparently studying the footage to figure out how the girl was able to fake the act of releasing sexual fluids. He concluded it was a magic trick, and the cam girl in question was a fucking magician in his own words.
Huge amount of fluid comes out of her vagina. This is not a sex worker. This is a fucking magician.
Did I mention that Randy Pitchford is a huge magic nerd? He probably thinks any girl that fakes the deed is Penn and Teller. Anyways, this was barely legal content, which is likely why the lawyer made the claim that it was underage, because hey, not exactly a lot of differences between the appearance of a 17-year-old and an 18-year-old. He's not a felon, I guess, but still very weird behavior from you, Randy. Hey, buddy.
Heyo!
What the hell is wrong with you? Oh yeah, there was also the company information on that same drive that was left at the medieval times. This was just a massive PR shit show all around. So not only is the boss of this company a degenerate gooner, but is also very incompetent at keeping sensitive material safe. So yeah, it's a miracle that he's still the head of the company. The lawyer who made these claims against Randy also made a bunch of other claims regarding Pitchford's mismanagement and shitty behavior. You know, standard game developer stuff. What's not standard game development stuff is assaulting your own cast. David Eddings, longtime voice actor for most love him or hate him character Claptrap, made claims that Randy got physically aggressive when Eddings brought up the topic of compensation for his performances. Now, I don't know how valid this accusation is. It is mostly just one party saying something and the other party saying something else. At least with the flash drive thing, Randy admitted that it was real and cleared up that the explicit content on there wasn't illegal. Well, I mean, he testified it wasn't illegal, and I guess we all just kind of took his word for it. It's still very, very suspect I would say. But here, it just seems like Randy did something to really piss off Dave. Even if Dave is lying or simply exaggerating what happened, Randy had to have done something to push him to put out a statement like that. Needless to say, Eddings was replaced for Borderlands 3. And of course, there was the disaster that was the Borderlands movie. We don't need to talk about that. But I've already experienced enough of that. Can we just move on, please? Oh yeah, Borderlands 4.
Shut up!
So I made a video on the gameplay deep dive, and I said I was cautiously optimistic for this installment. It looks promising to me. I was considering purchasing it, but if I have to pay $80 for a standard edition, I'm hoping it comes with at least 2 kilos of cocaine. If you, person watching this, are not a gamer in the know, Nintendo recently released the highly anticipated sequel to their very successful console Switch, the Switch 2. And one of these titles was Mario Kart World, a title that is selling for $80 USD, and that is for the standard version. A Mario Kart game. $80. Of course, most consumers began to worry that this new price tag would start a trend for other game publishers to bump their games up to $80, establishing a new industry standard, despite the fact that a new industry standard was established in this same console generation, with most AAA 9th gen console games going up from the 15-year-old established price of $60. The $60 price tag lasted 2 console generations. We're not even a whole 5 years into this current generation, and it's already getting another bump in game prices because of fucking Mario Kart World! Now, you're probably wondering what this has to do with our pal Randy. Well, he said something very dumb. So on Twitter, a fan was telling Randy that Borderlands 4 should not be $80. Don't feed into this recent trend. Randy made a response to this tweet, saying it's not his call. Which, you know, fair enough. Randy is in charge of Gearbox, the development studio behind the Borderlands series. The games are published by 2K, and publishers are basically the ones that put the price tag on the games. While dev studios can provide some input as to how much they think a single copy of their game should be worth, the publisher ultimately gets final say on the sale price. So I think Randy saying that he can't dictate the price of Borderlands 4 is a fair enough statement by itself. The issue is that he kept typing out the tweet. He follows up that statement by saying the most smug shit you can possibly follow up with. If you're a real fan, you'll find a way to make it happen. My local game store had Starflight for Sega Genesis for $80 in 1991 when I was just out of high school working minimum wage at an ice cream parlor in Pismo Beach, and I found a way to make it happen. God, he's a real fan of run-on sentences, isn't he? Sure, he did pay the modern day equivalent of $200. God, games were insane back then. I mean, to be fair, they weren't as a common commodity as they are today. But anyways, so yeah, he did pay the modern day equivalent of $200 for a game using what I assume was money from his minimum wage job. However, his dad worked within US intelligence, so I think it would be safe to say that Randy had more financial security than most. He was also just out of high school according to this tweet, so I can only assume that he was still living with his folks at the time. He probably was working that job solely to make money for that game, or just for personal purchases. You know how most people, when they're in high school, when they're a teenager, they get their first job, it's mostly just so they can buy stuff for themselves to, spoil themselves. It's not really to pay rent or whatever. So yeah, he probably did not have to worry about supporting himself with this ice cream parlor money. Now, of course, this is all just assumptions on my part. I don't know. Yeah, he might have been absolutely amazing at budgeting and saved enough to buy Starflight. What I do know is that nobody today wants the price on this game to be $80 US. And I also know nobody wants to hear you say, well, I made it work, so you can make it work. Especially considering the piss poor shape our economy is currently in. He did walk back the comments, saying he was only trying to say he doesn't decide how much the game costs. If that's what you're trying to say, you could have just left it at that! Why did you think the second part of that tweet was even necessary? He definitely just thought, how can I make myself sound as much of an asshole as possible? And, came out with this cute number. Probably the funniest part to come out of this entire situation is that 2K put out a press release recently revealing that the standard edition was going to be $70 anyway. So this guy just created a lot of controversy for no good fucking reason. Randy Pitchford is a complicated man. On one hand, he's played a huge role in this franchise that I love so much. Yes, it's not the best series, but on the other hand, Randy, he just kind of sucks. Okay, I guess he's not really that complicated. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about this specimen of a person, because Randy Pitchford is quite the enigma. He makes the worst possible choices you could make in his position, and yet he somehow still has a job. So yeah, I just want to talk about it because he's a bit of a fascinating fella. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to say. I'll see you when I see you, I guess.